There are 8 signs that reveal you were never meant to fully belong in this world. Carl Jung found that individuals carrying these traits perceive reality in a way most people simply cannot grasp. You notice patterns that others fail to see at all. Social encounters exhaust your very life force rather than fueling it. Whenever faced with authority, a deep, unexplainable resistance rises within you. And perhaps most unsettling of all, what the world calls success feels utterly empty, hollow, and without meaning. No matter how much you accomplish, imagine this moment. You're sitting in a crowded room, surrounded by laughter, chatter, and easy connection. Yet inside, you feel utterly separate. Not lonely, but isolated, as if your vision of reality is cut from a different fabric. You observe the rituals, the silent rules, the synchronized behaviors, and a thought whispers, "How did I end up among such unfamiliar creatures?" Jung recognized this feeling with striking clarity. He once wrote, "The individual has always faced the struggle of not being swallowed by the tribe." But Jung uncovered something profound about those who carry this deep sense of not belonging. What I call the outsider consciousness is not a flaw, nor a disorder that needs fixing. It is a unique way of perceiving reality, one that plays a vital role in the unfolding of human evolution. But here, what Jung revealed, the insight that changes everything. This feeling of not belonging isn't proof that something is broken inside you. It's proof that you carry what Jung described as psychological differentiation, the rare ability to separate your own awareness from the pull of collective thought. Most people, Jung noted, remain trapped in what can only be called a hive mind consciousness. They think the thoughts everyone else is thinking. They feel safe within the beliefs the crowd accepts, and they find comfort in disappearing into the collective. As Jung warned, the individual is increasingly stripped of moral choice and of true ethical independence. This is why you so often feel as if you're standing outside of humanity, watching its behaviors the way an anthropologist studies a distant tribe. Jung realized this is not a defect of character. It is psychological evolution in motion. Such individuals act as what I call consciousness scouts, venturing into inner landscapes the collective mind is not yet prepared to explore. Jung observed distinct patterns in those who feel this deep separation from collective consciousness. I call them the 8 markers of the differentiated mind. And if you find these signs within yourself, you are witnessing what Jung saw as the birth of true individuality. The first marker is what I call pattern recognition overdrive. Jung noticed that differentiated minds instinctively detect connections, systems, and hidden structures that others simply cannot see. As he wrote, "Your vision becomes clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, but who looks inside awakens." You've probably felt this awakening yourself, the ability to see beyond surface appearances into the deeper truths beneath. You notice when someone's words clash with the energy they carry. You sense how social systems are structured to preserve dysfunction, and you recognize how collective beliefs are crafted to keep people asleep, unconscious to their own power. This isn't paranoia, and it isn't overthinking. It's what Jung described as superior perception, the rare capacity to see beyond consensus reality. But here's the difficulty. When you reveal these patterns, others often meet you with confusion or even resistance. They cannot see what you see, so they assume you're only imagining it. Jung recognized this tension. He wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can guide us to a deeper understanding of ourselves. Your pattern recognition unsettles others because it pushes them to confront assumptions they've never dared to question. You become what I call the uncomfortable mirror, reflecting truths that most people would rather turn away from." And Jung's research into psychological types uncovered something vital about those who are truly differentiated. While most people draw energy from external stimulation and social interaction, you thrive through what I call solitude restoration. This is far deeper than ordinary introversion. Jung made a clear distinction between social introversion and what he termed psychological introversion. It is the deep need to process reality within yourself, before stepping into the external world. As Jung wrote, "Solitude is for me a fountain of healing. It makes my life worth living." In solitude, you are not lonely, you are whole. You finally think your own thoughts, without the noise or intrusion of other people's emotions. In solitude, you can process your experiences without wearing the masks of social roles. Most importantly, you can touch what Jung called the transcendent function, that hidden part of the psyche which weaves together the conscious and the unconscious. Tell me in the comments if you've always felt more alive and energized alone than in the presence of crowds, because solitude is not where I lose myself, it's where I finally find myself. But society pathologizes this need for solitude. You've likely been told you're antisocial, depressed, or simply missing out on life. Jung would strongly disagree. He discovered that differentiated individuals need solitude to preserve psychological balance. Without it, they become flooded by what he called psychic contamination, absorbing the unconscious projections of those around them. Jung noticed that differentiated individuals carry what I call authority resistance syndrome. This isn't rebellion for the sake of defiance. It's an instinctive recoil against illegitimate power. As Jung wrote, the individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. And part of that struggle is learning to see the difference between authority grounded in true wisdom and authority rooted only in control and manipulation. You've probably noticed this in your own life. Constant friction with bosses, teachers, or other authority figures. Not because you're defiant, but because you know when power is being used without true wisdom or moral grounding. This comes from what Jung called the archetype of the wise ruler, an inner compass that understands how power is meant to be exercised. So when you encounter authority twisted into abuse, your psyche rejects it instantly, almost violently. And here, where Jung's insight becomes truly revolutionary. He found that differentiated individuals are incapable of finding fulfillment in the conventional markers of success, because their orientation is not towards social achievement, but towards something far deeper, what Jung called individuation. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But for differentiated individuals, becoming who they truly are often requires rejecting everything society insists they should desire. You may have earned the very things others admire: good grades, career promotions, financial success. Yet deep inside, it all feels unbearably hollow. This isn't depression, it isn't ingratitude. It's your psyche whispering that external achievements can never fulfill what Jung called the drive toward wholeness. And here, where it cuts even deeper, Jung discovered that differentiated individuals often suffer from what I call achievement dysphoria, that haunting disconnection which strikes not when they fail, but precisely when they succeed on society's terms. The more success you earn inside systems you don't even believe in, the further you drift from your authentic self. This creates a private war within you, a conflict no one else can truly grasp. Your family cheers your promotion, while inside you feel like you're slowly dying. Your friends envy your achievements, while you quietly wonder why they leave you so empty. Jung called this the price of adaptation, the painful cost of succeeding in external systems while betraying your inner truth. Differentiated individuals are driven not by status or wealth, but by meaning, authenticity, and service to something greater than themselves. They would rather live authentically and face struggle than wear a mask of success while feeling spiritually lifeless. This isn't naive idealism, it is a psychological necessity. Jung found that these individuals carry what I call meaning detection systems, an inner compass that instantly knows when their actions are aligned with authentic purpose and when they're merely acting out the empty scripts of social expectation. This gives rise to what I call the success paradox. The greater your conventional success, the more distant you feel from your authentic self. But Jung understood that this emptiness is not meaningless. It has a purpose, to push you toward fulfillment through individuation, instead of losing yourself in social conformity. Jung's work on psychological types showed that differentiated individuals often carry what I call unconscious emotional telepathy. You instinctively tune in to the emotional states of others, often without even realizing it. This comes from what Jung described as participation mystique, a state where the boundaries between self and other grow thin, almost permeable. For most people, this happens only once in a while, but differentiated individuals live with it constantly. You enter a room and instantly feel the tension, the hidden conflicts, the unspoken emotions. You know when someone is lying, not from their words, but from the energy they radiate. You absorb the pain, the anger, the fear of others, as if it were your own. Jung described this as a heightened form of psychological sensitivity. He wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But for you, this isn't rare. Every encounter with another human being carries that same chemical reaction. And here's what makes it especially difficult for differentiated individuals. Jung observed that this emotional absorption doesn't happen by choice. It happens automatically, unconsciously, without you even realizing it. You don't choose to feel the emotions of others. It just happens. This is why you may feel anxious in certain places, without any clear reason, or completely drained after being around specific people. Jung named this phenomenon psychic contagion, the unconscious transfer of psychological states from one person to another. Most people have natural barriers, invisible walls that shield them from emotional overflow. But differentiated individuals often live with what I call permeable psychic boundaries, and that changes everything. You might walk away from a conversation suddenly angry, not because the anger was yours, but because you absorbed it from the other person. You could step into a place scarred by trauma and walk out carrying a sadness that was never your own. You don't just feel your own emotions, you absorb the collective state of everyone around you. This is why crowds, parties, even casual gatherings, they don't just feel busy, they feel overwhelming. It's like you're standing in the middle of a storm, every gust of emotion cutting through you. And that's the cost of this strange gift. You become what I call the emotional sponge, soaking up fear, anger, grief, even joy, whether you want to or not. That's why social situations leave you drained. Because you're not just carrying your own emotions, you're carrying everyone. You're not just processing your own emotions, you're processing everyone else's too. And Jung discovered something vital here. He realized that survival, true psychological health, depends on learning to draw that line. To ask yourself, is this mine or did I absorb it from someone else? He called this process psychological differentiation, the ability to separate what belongs to you from what never did, learning to hold your own emotional center while still remaining open, sensitive, and attuned to others. This is the real art. And here, what Jung discovered. Differentiated individuals don't just think literally. They naturally operate in what he called symbolic language. While most people relate to the world through facts, objects, and plain surface meanings, you see reality through symbols, metaphors, and archetypal patterns. Jung once wrote, "The symbol is the primitive exponent of the unconscious, but at the same time, an idea corresponding to the highest intuition, produced by consciousness." You're fluent in this symbolic language because you have natural access to what Jung called the collective unconscious. Where others dismiss dreams as random noise, you sense messages in them. Where others see coincidences, you recognize synchronicities, patterns woven through reality itself. To you, nothing is just accidental. Every symbol carries weight, every encounter has meaning, every sign points towards something deeper. You understand something most people miss, that myths and fairy tales were never meant as mere entertainment. They are maps of the human soul, expressing eternal truth through symbolic form. When you hear a story, you don't just listen, you see the archetypes unfolding. The hero's journey isn't just in books or films. It's alive in your own struggles, your own victories, your own transformation. This way of seeing, this symbolic thinking, is what Jung believed to be a higher form of consciousness. Not less real than the concrete world, but more real, a lens that reveals the hidden architecture of life itself. Literal thinking only skims the surface, but symbolic thinking, it cuts deeper. It perceives the hidden structures that govern reality itself. That's why you can grasp complex psychological or spiritual truths intuitively, without ever needing formal training. You simply recognize them. You see archetypal patterns unfolding in politics, in relationships, in the shifting currents of society. This is what Jung called archetypal perception, the ability to look past surface events and glimpse the underlying psychological forces at work. And here, Jung made a crucial observation about those rare individuals who have achieved differentiation. Differentiated individuals, they cannot escape it. They inevitably pass through what Jung called the encounter with the unconscious. These are not gentle seasons of life. They are periods of intense psychological crisis, storms that would shatter most people. Yet, for the differentiated, these storms become gateways to greater wholeness. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And so your journey toward differentiation has demanded something rare, something terrifying, that you face aspects of yourself and of reality itself that most people spend their entire lives running from. You've probably faced what I call an initiatory crisis. Those dark nights of the soul that come disguised as depression, anxiety, existential collapse, a spiritual emergency, or even a profound loss that stripped away everything you thought you knew about yourself and about reality. For many, such experiences would leave only ruin, but for you, they became something else. Not an ending, but a transformation. Jung named this process individuation, the long, often painful journey towards psychological wholeness, a path that demands not denial but integration, both your light and your shadow, woven together into a self that is finally indivisible. These crises, they are not punishments but what I call consciousness accelerators, moments so intense they shatter the ordinary pace of growth and force you into rapid transformation that no ordinary experience could ever give. If your darkest nights have reshaped you, if your pain has forged you, then write these words and claim them. My breakdown became my breakthrough, because your suffering was never random. It was never meaningless. It was the fire that tempered you into who you are now. It was what Jung called the price of consciousness, the cost you pay for evolving beyond conventional awareness into authentic selfhood. And the final sign Jung identified is perhaps the most important of all. Even though you may feel like you don't fully belong in this world, there is within you an irresistible calling, a pull to help others rise beyond their own limitations. Jung discovered that those who undergo this transformation cannot keep it to themselves. They naturally become what he called agents of individuation. People like you help others recognize and awaken their authentic potential. Understand, this isn't a career choice. It's a psychological compulsion. You can't help yourself. You share insights. You ask the uncomfortable questions. You challenge people to think more deeply than they ever have. And so you become a teacher, a healer, an artist, a writer, a counselor, not because you went out searching for those roles, but because those roles found you. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But once you step onto that path, something shifts. You can't help but want others to claim the same privilege. You become what I call a consciousness catalyst, someone whose very presence accelerates growth in others. But Jung also understood this gift comes with a price. He called it the integration challenge. How do you hold on to your authentic perspective while living in a world built for collective thinking? This isn't just a practical dilemma, it's a spiritual trial. It's not optional, it's a psychological necessity. Jung observed that differentiated individuals must learn to navigate what he called the tension of opposites, being simultaneously a part of society, yet always standing apart from it. And his answer, the transcendent function, the ability to hold both worlds, your individual truth and social reality, without losing either one. You learn to speak the language of the masses when you must, while silently guarding your inner perspective. This is what I call conscious adaptation, participating in social structures without being absorbed by them, wearing the masks when necessary, but never confusing the mask with who you truly are. You give others what they need, while guarding the essence of your authentic self. But here, where it gets complex, Jung discovered something crucial. Differentiated individuals often experience what I call identity fragmentation anxiety. Because you're constantly switching between your authentic self and your adaptive persona, you risk losing touch with who you really are beneath all the performances. Jung called this the problem of the persona. When you become too identified with your social mask, you drift away from your authentic self. But when you reject adaptation entirely, you cut yourself off, isolated, unable to contribute meaningfully to the world. The solution Jung proposed is what I call conscious persona management, learning to use social masks as tools, not as identities. You craft different personas for different contexts, while staying rooted in your authentic core self. Jung once wrote, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Your task isn't to dissolve yourself into structures, but to remain authentically you, within them. And that requires something I call social translation, the art of expressing your differentiated insights in language that others can hear and accept. You don't water down your truth, but you shape it so it can be received by those still rooted in the collective consciousness. Jung discovered that mastering this integration challenge is what transforms a differentiated individual into a bridge, a living link between different levels of awareness. This is what he called cultural participation without cultural absorption, the rare ability to contribute meaningfully to society while never surrendering your psychological independence. Jung believed that differentiated individuals serve a crucial function in humanity's psychological evolution, what I call the consciousness pioneer role. They are the scouts, exploring inner territories that humanity will one day have to inhabit. While the masses maintain stability through conformity, these differentiated souls are the ones who push the boundaries of what's truly possible. You challenge assumptions, you question limitations, and you refuse to accept that this is just how things are. Jung observed, every significant advance in human consciousness was sparked by individuals who never felt at home in their present world. They were the ones who dared to imagine possibilities beyond the limits of their time, and they had the courage to explore them. But here, what Jung understood about this evolutionary role that most people miss. Differentiated individuals don't choose their mission, they're chosen by it. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to see patterns others can't, or to feel emotions others won't touch. These capacities unfolded within you, not as random traits, but as expressions of something deeper, what Jung called the collective unconscious, seeking a voice through you. Jung discovered that differentiated consciousness emerges precisely when humanity needs to move beyond its current limitations. You don't just appear randomly. You show up in times and places where your form of awareness is required for collective growth. That's why you so often feel misplaced, as if you were born in the wrong time, the wrong place, because your consciousness isn't aligned with the present. It's oriented toward humanity's future. And that function, while evolutionary, also explains the burden you carry. Jung once wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle, not to be overwhelmed by the tribe." Your role as a consciousness pioneer requires one thing above all: psychological independence, even if it means isolation, even if it means deep misunderstanding. Jung observed that this pioneering function doesn't move through logic alone. It operates through what he called synchronistic guidance, meaningful coincidences, intuitive flashes, strange patterns that seem to whisper, "This is the path." They pull you again and again toward certain ideas, certain people, certain situations. And each time you feel something ignite, a quickening, a hidden acceleration in your own psychological development and in your capacity to serve others. This is awakening. The loneliness you feel as a differentiated individual is not mere personal isolation. It is what Jung called evolutionary tension. You are holding space for possibilities that do not yet exist in collective consciousness. Yes, the tension is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Without it, psychological evolution cannot unfold. You are not broken. You are not defective. You are what Jung named the growing edge of consciousness, a living representation of humanity's potential to break through its current limitations. Your very existence is living proof that evolution beyond our present limitations is not only possible, it is already happening. But with this gift comes one of the greatest burdens, what I call the relationship paradox. You crave authentic connection, a bond that mirrors the depth at which your consciousness naturally lives. And yet, most people cannot meet you there. They are still bound to the surface levels of awareness. Jung knew this dilemma well. He once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and this is the crossroads you stand upon, the aching hunger for belonging versus the terrifying courage to fully embrace your differentiated self." Most people have never dared to step into that inner fire. They haven't done the work. So when they meet someone who has, they don't recognize it. They can't. And that's why what passes for connection in the ordinary world, shared hobbies, small talk, surface interests, feels unbearably thin to you. Like eating paper when your soul is starving for bread. You don't just want company, you crave real connection. The kind where ideas can breathe, where emotions can be raw, where both souls are committed to growth instead of comfort. But here's the truth. Relationships like these are rare. They demand two people who are both devoted to consciousness, not just convenience. That's why Jung pointed to what I call selective intimacy, a discipline of the heart. You choose carefully who gets to see your authentic self. And with everyone else, you stay kind, you stay compassionate, but with clear boundaries. Because your soul is not a public park. It is sacred ground. Jung noticed something remarkable. Differentiated individuals carry inside them what I call the creative imperative, an unstoppable urge to pour their unique vision into the world. But hear this, it isn't about talent or being a painter, a poet, a musician. It's deeper than that. It's what Jung described as the need to give form to inner experience, to take what's alive inside your soul and make it visible so it doesn't wither in silence. Your differentiated consciousness doesn't stay silent. It demands expression through writing, through art, through teaching, or whatever creative outlet it finds. And Jung captured it perfectly when he wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct, acting from inner necessity. This is why true creativity feels less like a choice and more like destiny. Your creativity emerges from inner necessity, a deep compulsion to share your unique perspective with the world. Even if others don't understand, even if they dismiss or overlook your expression, you can't not create. Because creation is how you process your experience, how you give meaning to your journey, and how you contribute your piece to the vast collective puzzle of human consciousness." And Jung observed something profound. That differentiated consciousness often carries with it a natural spiritual awareness, not bound by religion, not limited by doctrine, but an intuitive sense of realities that transcend the visible world. You might feel a connection to something greater, something beyond the material world, even if you can't quite define it. You notice synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, moments that whisper there's an underlying intelligence shaping reality. Jung called this the religious function of the psyche, not organized religion, but direct, living spiritual experience. He wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. And part of that struggle is protecting your own spiritual connection, instead of blindly accepting beliefs that were handed down. This awareness often makes you uneasy, with rigid religious dogma on one side, and with materialistic atheism on the other, because you know there's more to reality than what science can measure. And you know that truth cannot be trapped inside dogmatic systems. So here, what Jung would want you to remember, your sense of not belonging is not a sign of inadequacy. It's not evidence that you're broken. It's evidence of psychological evolution in progress. You're not falling apart, you're growing beyond the limits of the collective. The goal isn't to erase your differences or to force yourself into a box where you don't belong. Jung's vision was integration, to honor your authentic nature while still finding ways to give something real to the world around you. Your differentiated consciousness, this ability to see and feel beyond the surface, isn't just a gift, it's also a responsibility. You see what others cannot see, you feel what others cannot feel, and you understand what others cannot understand. This isn't an accident, it's a calling. It gives you the ability to stand as a bridge between worlds, between what is and what could be. Your gift allows you to guide others beyond their current limitations, to help them step into possibilities they never imagined for themselves. But for differentiated individuals, becoming who you truly are is more than personal fulfillment. It's evolutionary service. There are 8 signs you're not meant for this world, and if you recognize them in yourself, Jung would tell you, your sense of not belonging isn't proof that you're broken, it's evidence of your importance. To human psychological evolution, you see patterns others miss because you're meant to be a guide. Social situations drain you because you're processing information others can't even sense. You resist authority because you recognize when power has lost its wisdom. Conventional success feels empty to you because your compass isn't achievement, it's meaning. You absorb the emotions of others, you think in symbols, you transform through crisis, and you feel called to help others awaken because you are what Jung called an agent of individuation, a living catalyst for human evolution, someone whose very existence accelerates psychological development in others. Your differentiated consciousness is not a burden to bear, it's a gift to share. And if Jung could speak to you today, his message would be simple. Stop trying to fit into this world as it is, and start helping it become what it could be. If you want to explore more about how certain individuals carry unique psychological gifts that others can exploit, thanks for walking this path of understanding with me. See you in the next dimension of consciousness.